That's because it's the longest sermon of the year that he had to do that.
That's true. That's one of the traditions.
It's the tradition.
Yes.
That is a tradition. So, yeah, we'll work our way through this throughout the sermon. Before the sermon, I want to offer a brief disclaimer. I'm going to mention different perspectives on Israel throughout this sermon. We all know that's a sensitive topic and a sensitive time. Some perspectives might resonate with you, others you feel might provoke you. The manner in which I discuss these perspectives, likewise, might resonate with you, they might provoke you. That is by design. Please bear with me. All of these different perspectives are serving a larger point. So now to get to those perspectives, we're going to start at the doctor's office with me on Monday. Everything is fine. I needed to mention that because my parents are going to stream this later. And throughout the appointment, the doctor and I bounced between conversations that doctors often have, in this case about muscle strains, and conversations that rabbis often have, in this case about Israel, not yet 2 days removed from Israel's defense against the barrage of hundreds of drones and missiles from Iran on Saturday night. The doctor presented a particular viewpoint about what's going on in Israel and Gaza, Lebanon, Iran, and he acknowledged that I or others might see things differently. At one point, he said, "I get it. This is how I understand Israel, and some of my friends think I'm nuts for it. And I think they're nuts for how they understand Israel. But we are still friends." He went on to prescribe my treatment, and together we anticipated if, how, and when Israel would respond. Leaving the office, that one statement stuck with me. They think I'm nuts, I think they're nuts, and we're still friends. With Passover only a few days away, you might sit down at a Seder table with people, with family, friends, people in our community who think differently from you. I want to be especially clear here. What I explore in this sermon is about how we encounter our friends, like the doctor said, our family, and our community, loved ones who might sit around our Seder table. This is not a sermon about how we encounter protesters in the street or on social media. In NSCI's recent clergy Passover video, we trace this reality, sitting together across differences, all the way back to the 4 children of the Passover Seder. Each child asks a different question, has a different understanding of the Seder, and has different life experiences, opinions, biases, and values that create these different perspectives. This Passover, in a year that feels different from all other years, we are those children, bringing diverse perspectives to a sensitive and significant shared communal experience. Who among us and who at our Seder tables is the wise child? The one who asks, what are the geopolitical causes and implications of the conflict between Israel and Iran? This one might point out that Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon both receive funding from Iran. That the past 6.5 months may have been a proxy war all along, with a bigger standoff between the United States and Iran about preventing Iran's nuclear power bubbling beneath the surface. Or this one might suggest that the majority government in Israel is desperate to hold on to power and is willing to pay the costs of escalating war to do so. The wise child might ask why Israel must continue its military action in Gaza despite mounting international pressure to withdraw. Or how Israel can possibly keep its citizens safe if it succumbs to that international pressure. This is the wise child. Who among us and who at our Seder tables is the rebellious child? The one who asks, why do we wait with bated breath about what's going on halfway across the world? This one might bring the universal understanding of the Passover Seder to the table. Let all who are hungry come eat. Those in our community, those in our town, those in our immediate surroundings who need support several thousands of miles closer to our homes. Or the rebellious child might ask, how can we celebrate our collective freedom from bondage at a Passover Seder while there are Jews who are still held hostage in Gaza after 195 days? This one might mention that the minister of Jerusalem, Meir Perush, requested that the UN provide matzah and wine for the hostages in Gaza, as if the bread of affliction absolves affliction itself. This is the rebellious child. Who among us and who at our Seder tables is the simple child, the one who asks, what is even going on with Israel right now? This one would have to parse between the different answers from around the table. Someone might quote the Haggadah, saying, in every generation, enemies stand to destroy us. We have been here before, and Israel is the manifestation of the Jewish right to self-defense. Someone else might respond with a detailed timeline from October 7th, 2023, to which someone else might add on the regional timeline from 1967, or 1948, or the 1880s, or before that. I think you get the picture. Another voice around the table might cite their more modern news source, to which a contending voice points out that that news source's bias and contributes their own unbiased news source. Eventually, the simple child comes to understand that there are many ways to look at our moment in our people's history, but Israel is the Jewish state. We care about it, and it is enduring a harrowing period of conflict. This is the simple child. Who among us and who at our Seder tables is the one who doesn't know how to ask? The one so overwhelmed with deep-seated and competing histories, emotions, news cycles, and social media feeds. I often find myself as the one who doesn't know how to ask how we go on, day by day, with our hearts and minds in Israel, to ask how the families of hostages go on, to ask how the discourse about Israel, Gaza, and anti-Semitism has morphed into what it is now, on Instagram, on college campuses, in city halls, so far removed from the people we care about in immediate danger. To ask why Israel and Gaza is at the forefront of so many minds of people who are not Jewish, who are not Palestinian, but are still invested in a conflict in which they have no stake. To ask, when will this end? Or how will it end? Or what tomorrow looks like? Perhaps with too many questions to know where to begin, this is the child who doesn't know how to ask. I expect that these 4 children will be present at your Seder table this year. The uncertainty is how to be together as family, as friends, and as a community that inevitably includes divergent, even conflicting perspectives. One answer is hidden in the Seder itself. The earliest description of a Seder is found in the Mishnah, the volume of rabbinic law codified in the year 220. In its earliest sources, a parent teaches their child about Passover if the child, and the source says, if the child lacks understanding. And how does that parent teach? Lefi dato aviv malamdo. This is the important part. the parent teaches according to the child's understanding. The parent does not teach according to their own understanding or according to the way that they heard is best to teach or according to how they taught the child's older sibling at last year's Seder. The parent teaches according to the child's understanding, knowing full well that the child's understanding might be different from their own. They might be wise, they might be rebellious, they might be simple, they might not know how to ask. They might have a lot of Passover knowledge already, they might have none, and they might be somewhere in between. This little line, the parent teaches according to the child's understanding, this little line teaches quite a big lesson. We will have people of different understandings around the Seder table. People who will understand the Seder differently, or Judaism, or Israel, or Gaza, or Lebanon, or Iran. The Seder still brings all of us together to encounter one another. And we encounter one another, really see each other best when we listen for each other's understanding. Not imposing our own perspectives, but getting to know how those around the table understand the world. That might mean asking questions before providing answers, leading with curiosity. That might mean uncovering the underlying interests and needs that form each other's positions. It might mean sharing our own interests and needs with some vulnerability. These aren't easy encounters. I had a conversation like this with a pastor friend of mine recently about Israel and Gaza, and although we have very different understandings of the situation there, we came to a clearer picture of each other and our differences. Our conversation was not perfect, but we left the coffee shop closer than when we had entered. That is the sacred fiber that binds us together. Not seeing the world in the same way, but seeing each other in a full way. Ma nishtana hashana hazot mikol hashanot. What makes this year different from all other years? I'm afraid that there is a lot. But one thing that is all the same is that we will sit at Seder tables with people of different perspectives and do what feels impossible in polarized times, but is ultimately within our power. To get to know how each other understands, to love each other across differences, to be in relationships with each other despite disagreements, to be in community with each other, knowing that there are at least 4 children with different understandings among us. Remember when I told you about my doctor saying, they think I'm nuts, I think they're nuts, and we're still friends? That is the hope. That when we encounter each other, and still I'm talking about friends, family, and community, not random protesters or social media comment sections, that we encounter our loved ones around the Seder table deeply enough to listen and to share, to learn and to teach, and to stay friends when we reveal our differences. And may our unwavering togetherness merit a taste of a Passover next year when all Jewish people can experience the jubilant freedom described in the Exodus from Egypt. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Pesach Sameach.